I went in, and then when I went in, I saw that the Rebbe is holding his small pocket siddur, his red siddur in his hand. But next to him was standing Rabbi Yitzchak Ushpal, who's standing right next to him, and he's standing so close that the Rebbe's looking up to him like that, mamish, straight up, and unbelievable. And he's reading his own zettel to the Rebbe. But anyway, the Rebbe stopped and stood up and leaned over the desk and gave me the siddur, and he said to me, "Zolst davenen besimcha umatzliach sein."
Welcome to Homesick for Lubavitch, a podcast where we explore Lubavitch identity in the year 2025. My name is Bosi Lgani, and I will be your host. Let's begin. Alrighty, we are here with Rabbi Aharon Cousin. Third time is a charm, they say. Third time is a charm. Third time's a charm. I was here a few months ago with my good friend and your nephew, Rabbi Eli Rubin.
Eli Rubin, yeah.
And he came to interview you for the family, and I was on the video side of that one, and then I came again a few weeks ago for the podcast, and let's just call it Hashgacha Pratis. I forgot to upload the audio SD card from that interview, and so I had a wonderful video and even more wonderful memories of our conversation, but the audio was not up to snuff. So we have the audio working here, the video working here. Hopefully this time I'll get it right. And thank you very much for agreeing to tell your story again.
My pleasure.
Just so you know, of all the concerns I had when I realized I lost the SD card, my last concern was that I would have to hear your story all over again. That was something I was looking forward to. What I wasn't looking forward to was telling you that I would have to come back.
Well, listen. The thing is that I understand accidents happen. You know, it proves that you're a normal human being.
Yeah, who would have thought?
You're not perfect yet.
Yeah, that's right.
So a mistake happens. Nicht gefährlich.
Right.
We learn from our mistakes. I'm sure you won't happen again.
Yes.
Mirz Hashem.
Yes, that's the best part of a mistake.
But yeah, you always remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there will be times, of course, that I will refer back to earlier conversations, given that I've heard your story. Although I intend to have this conversation without trying to redo it again. We'll see where it goes, and I'm sure it'll take different turns than it did last time. But there may be some times that I ask you to say a story over that you said last time, and it'll be a little bit different than other episodes, but maybe it'll be better. Mm-hmm. Anyway, if you see what we do for you here on Homesick for Lubavitch, doing it a couple times and coming back again to make sure we have the story. If you appreciate the work we put into it, please like and subscribe on all the different platforms. It does help us. And if you are so inclined, please visit hflpodcast.com/donate to make a contribution. Anyways, Rabbi Aharon, pleasure again. Good morning.
Good morning.
And let's begin from the beginning. If you could describe the growing up during World War II in not London, right?
No, Leeds, England, my hometown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, first of all, good Yom Tov, because today is Yud Beis Tammuz, a very auspicious day. It's a day when the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was given his well, he didn't actually receive his documentation till the next day, but he was told he is free to leave the country. Not only he must leave the country, and in fact, the Frierdiker Rebbe went to live in Latvia, Riga, capital of Latvia. But so it was a very, very, very special, very beautiful, happy day today in Chabad. Although I remember when I was a boch in 770 in Tovshin Yud Ches 1958, the Rebbe Farbrengen Yud Beis Tammuz, and he said that there are two celebrations. There's Gimel Tammuz, when the Rebbe was released from Spalerke, from the prison, and then there was Yud Gimel Tammuz, 10 days later, Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, when he was actually freed completely. They had exiled him for 3 years to Kostroma.
Right.
But then they said, you don't have to stay in Kostroma, you have to leave the country. So I remember the Rebbe saying that Gimel Tammuz was even a bigger miracle than Yud Beis Tammuz, because to get out of Spalerke was virtually unheard of.
Oh, 1 second, just to clarify what that means, to be saved from death, right?
Well, right.
Spalerke was execution.
Yeah, that's what it meant.
Right.
99 times out of 100, anybody went into Spalerke, he was put before a firing squad. The Rebbe, in the Kutei Diburim describes this in great detail. So the Rebbe said, but how come then, if that was a bigger miracle, and that was a greater simcha than Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, so how come the Frierdiker Rebbe made Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz the big Yom Tov, and Gimel Tammuz, amongst Hasidim, we don't say Tachnol, but there was no great big celebration. So here you see the Frierdiker Rebbe's tachlis, his purpose in life. You see, when he was in prison, so he was under the total jurisdiction of the prison rules and regulations. You get up when they tell you to get up. You go to sleep when they tell you to get up. You can't learn, you can't daven, you can't keep mitzvahs. You're totally under that. So when he was freed on Gimel Tammuz, it was a personal redemption, but it wasn't a redemption for Klal Yisrael. He still was under their jurisdiction as in exile. But when he was freed completely on Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, that was a celebration for the whole of Klal Yisrael, because now he could carry on all his, strengthening for Yiddishkeit and have Fotzes Hamayonas. The Rebbe said that by Emerson, by Hasidim, Gimel Tammuz is even a greater simcha, a greater joy than Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz. Yeah, so that was just my way of introduction, this Hashgacha Pratis that we're having it on this beautiful day.
Oh, I didn't even realize that's how early I woke up this morning. But Megalgal and Schus Liyam Zakai.
Right.
So then let's just sit on that for a little bit. What was it like? Describe the Farbrengen in Tufshin Chai. What did the Farbrengen feel like, look like?
Well, obviously in Tufshin Chai, the oilam was a much smaller oilam than you have today. And then the Rebbe used to Farbrengen in the shalash, the downstairs yard, the upstairs shul in 770 became too small. When I first came to 770 in 1956, the Rebbe was still Farbrengen in the shul upstairs. Mm. But afterwards, after a year or so, it got too crowded, and we moved downstairs to the shalash, and it was covered by a tarp, in case of rain, and that's where we had the sukkah, and so on and so forth. But the oilam, I would say, was 500 people, and it was very uncomfortable because it was open on all sides, and in the winter, the wind and the rain, and it was cold, and it was agony standing there. The Rebbe used to Farbrengen 7, 8, 10 hours, and you were huddled together with everybody, and below you were schwitzing, you were soaked through, and the top half of your head and shoulders, that was freezing cold. So it was real Mesiras Nefesh to stand it by a Farbrengen. But it was a very, very beautiful Farbrengen. It was very close, very, very formal. Yeah.
So, which has a beautiful description. It's very real. I don't think I've ever heard such a description before.
Well,
thank you. But depict to me in your memory what moments stand out? Is it the Nigunim? Is it the Rebbe Siches? Is it the...
Well, the things that stand out in my memory are, in those days, for many years as well afterwards, people used to go over to the Rebbe in between the Siches and ask for a personal bracha. And I remember once the Rashag, the Rebbe's brother-in-law, Rabbi Shmaryahu Gurari, he went over to the Rebbe in the middle of the Farbrengen, and the Rebbe at that time was looking straight ahead. We were singing a niggun, and the Rebbe just didn't notice him. He was standing here with his cup of wine in his hand, but obviously he's not going to interrupt the Rebbe, but the Rebbe was just staring ahead like that. And he was standing, he's the Rashag, he's the older brother-in-law, but he's standing there with Mami's absolute, total respect and amor, with awe. And then after about, half a minute or so, the Rebbe suddenly noticed him and turned round to him. And then I heard him say, Rebbe, ich bete bracha auf Tomchei Tmimim. He said, Rebbe, I'm asking for a bracha for Tomchei Tmimim. The Lubavitch Yeshivas are called Tomchei Tmimim because he was in charge of all the finances of all the yeshivas. A very, very difficult position. So the Rebbe said to him, Ubitnai mazol nemen mera talmidim. He said, on condition that you take in more pupils. So the Rashag said, Ich beta brocha onatnai. I'm asking for a blessing without a condition. So the Rebbe said to him, Azoi hot schwer übergegeben. This is what our father-in-law told me to tell you.
Wow.
So that's like things like that stand out. That was an amazing thing.
Wow.
That was just a quiet conversation between the two of them. And I was standing quite close then. In those days, you could get up fairly close. I was standing very close to where Yokan used to stand. So I actually heard that myself. I don't know if other people heard or even noticed it, but I noticed. And that struck me. As if, he's just been speaking to his father-in-law. His father-in-law told him to tell him. It's like a moifas von a Rebbe.
What a story. There are so many layers to that. And there's so many layers. Like you mentioned, he was the older brother-in-law. And there was a few years where there was difficulty in the transition, let's just say. And, just for him, the idea of him going to the younger brother-in-law and calling him the Rebbe, right?
Yes.
And then that dialogue. Who even knows what it really meant? But wow, what a moment!
Oh yeah.
What did you like when you were getting ready for Farbrengen, or you know that there's going to be Farbrengen on this and this day? What are you looking forward to? What are you coming away? And maybe more importantly, what are you coming away with? Are you coming away with? Look at all these chedushim that the Rebbe said. Are you coming away? What does a Farbrengen mean to you?
Well, in those days, the Rebbe started to speak a lot about shlichus. And the whole talk was, would you go, amongst ourselves, amongst the Bochrim, would you go on shlichus? Where would you go, and so on and so forth. And we all said, well, we'd go wherever the Rebbe sent us, even to Timbuktu, if we were told to go, we'd go. And the Rebbe, I remember the Rebbe speaking loud and clear and saying, a bocher, a student, b'shas, sitzt in Tomchei Tmimim, when he's sitting and learning in Tomchei Tmimim, Torah nish trachten, kein shum tachleisim. He's not allowed to think of any things he's going to do later on in life. Afilu tachleisim shel kedusha. Even things which is a good thing, to go on shlichus. No, a bocher darf sitzen und lernen und davenen. And das alles. Don't involve yourself in any other things except sitting and learning and davening and getting more Yerushalayim, so that eventually, when you go out from yeshiva, you will be able to, survive outside in the big wide world.
Right. But after Farbrengen, you felt that you had learned something from the Rebbe? Did you feel that you had developed as a chassid? Like, what was the...
Well, the thing that impressed me personally was the gewaltige chedushim of the sichos and the way the Rebbe analyzed the Rashi and so on and so forth. And, the bekiyas that the Rebbe had was absolutely unbelievable. His vast knowledge of Kol HaTorah Kula. And that I used to come away and think about it, and the mimer itself was unbelievable. How could one person have such a vast knowledge? I remember, when I was...
What did you feel when the Rebbe said a mimer?
Well, you felt like it was what it says by Moshe Rabbeinu, that the Eibishter is speaking through him. He is revealing, what Hashem wants us to hear. It was an incredible feeling. I'll never forget, when I was back in England, and there was a chassid called Rabbi Shmuel Grossman, Lubavitcher Shalom. His father was Osher Nikolaev. He was a chassid by the Rebbe Rashab. And he did a big toivet for the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe Rashab, to do with the Tanya. And the Rebbe Rashab was forever grateful for this chassid, Osher Nikolaev. But anyway, this was his son, Shmuel Grossman. And he said he once stayed in the Rebbe's father's house, Rabbi Levi Yitzchok's, the Rebbe's father, in Yekaterinoslav. He was there for a few weeks. He didn't say why he was there. Anyway, he said every Friday night during the Sudas Shabbos, during the Shabbos meal, Rabbi Levik would say a Dvar Torah for say 10, 15 minutes. And then he would say to his older son, to Mendel, who was to later on to become the Rebbe, he used to say, "Nu Mendel, wo steht es?" He would say to him, "Mendel, where does it say all this?" And Mendel was about a 15-year-old boy, used to say, "Oh, it's a Yerushalmi, it's a Medrash, it's a Sifri, it's a Gemara in Bavli," and so on and so on. And he would mention all the Mari Mekaymas, all the sources from whatever the Rebbe his father would say. Then the Rabbi Levi Yitzchok would say another talk. And again he would say, "Nu, Mendel Vushtatus," and he would mention Kabbalah and Zoya and this and that. And this was every week. He was there for 3 weeks. Every Friday night, this was what happened. So Rabbi Shmuel Grossman said to Rabbi Levi Yitzchok, every time you stop and you ask the Rebbe where it says, why do you have to ask him where it says? I mean, why can't you say yourself? You know where you're quoting from. Say the Mari Mekaymas, say the sources yourself. Why do you have to ask your son? So he said, my son is a größere Baki wie ich bin. My son is more knowledgeable of all the sources than I am. than I am. That's why I ask him, because he knows more places where all these things are said than I do. So that was Rebbe was 15 years old. He already was booking Kol HaTorah Kula. So when you hear the Sikha from the Rebbe, you know, he was mind-boggling. And that was the astounding thing that he used to go away with from the Rebbe, you know.
But the Farbrengen wasn't only Torah. There was also Nigunim. There was the atmosphere.
Oh yeah. Well, that was right. Yeah, the Rebbe would sing and dance and stand up and dance and clap his hands, and that whole atmosphere would say l'chaim to everybody. Everybody in the shul would say l'chaim. L'chaim v'livrocha, l'chaim v'livrocha, l'chaim v'livrocha. You heard the Rebbe saying that all the time.
Right. So what a beautiful recollection. So let's start from the beginning and work our way back.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Yuvla Media, a boutique video production company servicing the Chabad and Jewish community. Since opening 10 years ago, Yuvla Media has pushed the boundaries of artistic and thoughtful storytelling in the community, with an insistence on there always being a memorable story as well as a beautiful and striking visual image that we believe is second to none. Over the years, we have worked with Chabad organizations around the country, as well as large organizations like Boni Olam, Torah Masorah, and Atzalathon, guided by the belief that your story is absolutely worth telling with depth and creativity. If you are looking to tell your story with a video, please reach out to us at hello@yuvlamedia.com. Again, that is hello@yuvlamedia.com. A link can be found in the show notes. And now, back to the podcast.
When I was a young boy during the Second World War.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was born in 1938, just about a year and a half before World War II broke out. And my father was called up to the army. And I only saw my father once till I was about 7 years old, till after the war. He came home once on leave for 3 days before he was sent abroad to North Africa to fight Rommel's, the German general's army in North Africa. And my mother, Alea Sholem, you know, she brought up a family, you know, 4 children, 2 sisters and 2 brothers. I was the youngest. And it was very, very difficult for us during the war. You know, we were very, very poor. We lived in I can only call it a slum, which was normal for everybody in those days. There was no toilet in the house. The toilet was down the street, shared by all the people in the street. There was no bath in the house. If you wanted a bath, you had to go to the bathhouse, and you know.
How often did you go to the bathhouse?
Well, you know, once a week when I was already a bigger boy. But when I was younger, we had like a big havana. My mother used to call it. Havana is a Russian word for a tub,
right?
A bathtub. And so I used to have my mother would heat a kettle of water up on the gas stove, and then pour in hot water into, you know, mix hot water and cold water and have a little bath inside the tub, and that was it. But, you know, once you got too big, you had to go to the bathhouse. I hated it. You know, amongst all the, you know, it was not a very pleasant experience, I can tell you. Anyway.
But better or worse than Union Street Mikveh?
No comparison. Anyway, and then, you know, Leeds started to get bombed quite severely during the war. And it must have been about 1942 or 43, I'm not sure the exact dates, you know, I was only a little kid. But my earliest recollection of anything is my mother, Alea Sholem, during the war, carrying me in her arms, going on the platform of the station. We were being evacuated from Leeds because the bombing got terrible. The house across the road got bombed. The house down the street. You never knew. Who's next. People never were getting killed. So
You told me last time that there was a neighbor that had a bomb fall into their bedroom and not go off, right?
That's right. Yes, he had a bomb come straight through the roof, and Colin Kybel was his name. His friend, I still remember it. Actually, years later, he moved to his father after the war. Said, "I've had enough of Europe," and he moved to Australia. So this friend of mine, Colin Kybel, he moved to Australia as well. So I was there.
A Jewish kid?
Pardon?
A Jewish kid?
Yeah, Jewish kid. And I was in Australia, I don't know, about 15 years ago for a chassan of an Einikel. And I looked up, Kybel. Anyway, in Sydney there was no Kybel, but I found in Melbourne there was a Kybel. So I phoned him up. And I said, is there a Colin Kybel? So, yeah, our father's called Colin Kybel, but he's away on holiday now. I said, well, tell him, his friend from Leeds, from Enfield Avenue House, I'm here in Australia, Anyway, I left him my number, and he contacted me, we met together again. When he was in London, we met together. But that was, 60 years after the war or something like that.
So your mother was on the train station.
Yeah, and so I remember her carrying me. I was only a little baby. How old I was. She was carrying me, and my other brother and sisters. I was the youngest, so they were walking with them. She was holding on to them, and we got on a train. We lived in the countryside for a few months. Till it was safe to come back home.
You were describing to me last time, which I found very, very strong. The hunger, and the just the lack of food.
Oh, right, yes, that's another important point. There was very, very little food around, and everything was rationed. Even when there was a bit of food, you could only have some. How many people in your family, you had so many ration books according to, you can have 3 eggs, you can only have 1 egg, and that type of thing. When there was food, but very often there was no food. And we used to come home and there was absolutely nothing to eat. So what did we do? We used to go out in the street and we used to scrape off the tar, the black pitch from the roads. And we used to chew it. And we called it black chewing gum. And it took away the hunger pains, till we got some proper food. But we used to go to bed hungry very, very often at night. Nothing to eat.
Crazy. How did you as children understand the war? Did you understand it as like a British war? Did you understand it as a Jewish Holocaust? Did you have any idea what was going on at the time?
No idea at all. We just knew that we're fighting the Germans. That's all the news that we got through, That's all the papers were reporting was, what the RAF are doing and what then the Americans came into the war, so we got a bit more information about that.
Right.
But, they didn't really give us the true picture, it was always, we're winning, we're doing great, we're going ahead, and so on.
Propaganda,
yeah.
So you're living through this terrible time of the war, and then the war ends.
Right.
What happens then?
Well, Baruch Hashem, my father came home in 1946.
He was on the front?
He was, my father.
He was fighting on the front.
Oh, yeah. He was fighting, got wounded,
So in the continent, not staffing in England, but...
No, in North Africa.
North Africa.
North Africa, yeah.
Oh, that's where they fought Rommel.
Rommel's...
so he was part of, what was that, Montgomery?
Yeah, Montgomery. Yeah, that's right.
Look at my education school history classes.
Right, very good. Because I've got a photograph of my father on a parade, afterwards all the the Jewish soldiers used to parade.
So he was part of the Jewish brigade?
No.
That was in
He
Israel.
was part of the British Army.
Right.
But after the war, there used to be ex-servicemen's parade and a Jewish ex-servicemen's parade. So he used to, and there's a picture of him, my father, and Field Marshal Montgomery. And, he's marching along with his medals, and Field Marshal Montgomery's nodding to him and that type of thing.
So he was under Marshal Montgomery.
Yeah.
Wow, what a story.
Monty, they called him. Montgomery Monty.
And your dad was a proud Britishman, like a proud. He was proudly British.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. That was it. Anyway, but what happened was, soon after the war, the British mandate came to an end in Eretz Yisrael.
Right.
So, the various groups in Eretz Yisrael, Haganah, Lehi, and so on, they started fighting the British. Because the Yidden, they wanted to let in more Holocaust survivors, and the British were afraid of the Arabs, and they said no. So there was a lot of clandestine operations to get Yidden in. It was terrible capable times. But I remember one thing where anti-Semitism went sky high when the British captured 3 Jewish soldiers from the Haganah. And they said that terrorists are not soldiers. Terrorists have to be hung. And we're going to hang them in the prison in Acre. So the Israelis said, if you hang our men, our soldiers, we'll hang your men. We'll hang your British soldiers. But the British, no one can tell them what to do. So they went ahead, and they hung these 3 young Jewish boys, So the next day, the Israelis went and captured 2 British officers in Jerusalem, and they hung them on a tree in Jerusalem, in an orchard in Jerusalem. But the thing was, the next day, every newspaper in England, Scotland, and Wales, and Northern Ireland had the front page, a picture of these 2 British soldiers hanging, from this tree. So then it became mamish sakonis to go out, because they're going, we'll get those Jews, I remember our fathers had to did it in turns, take us to school and bring us home from school, and take us to cheder and bring us home from cheder, and so on and so forth. And it was really got worse and worse. And then eventually, in 1948, the State of Israel was established, and the British left completely, So then it quietened down a little bit, but there was still anti-Semitism. I got beaten up every day on the way to school, on the way home. During school, the teachers were all anti-Semitic. They picked on the Jews. So I went to a school, there were 600 boys in this school. It was a boys' school, high school. And
so you're about 13, 14 years old?
No, I was about 12.
In England, high school starts in 7th grade, right?
Yeah, it starts from age 11.
All right.
So I was 13, I don't know, 12, 13, whatever. And so I'll never forget, how there were 600 boys in this school. And 40 of them were Jewish. There were 40 Jewish boys in this school. And every recess, we used the Jewish boys used to congregate together in one part of the playground. They called it Jews' Corner because when we were all together, they didn't do anything. But if one of us went to the toilet or something, they were waiting in the toilet and they beat us up. It was terrible. It was really, really frank. The teachers were such anti-Semitic, and they picked on us left, right, and centre. I hated it. I hated it. I couldn't learn it. I was sitting there in the class, fear and dread from the minute I got into school until the minute I went out of school. I never used, cousin, come out to the front. I saw you talking. I said, sir, I wasn't talking. Now you're contradicting me. Now you'll get a double punishment. Bend over. And then he used to hit you with, each one had a different weapon. Some used to use a blackboard ruler. Some used to use a plimsoll, rubber shoe and hit you. And these were big guys, rugby players, crazy, mad people. They were just, and they were specialists, but they hit everybody. There was one teacher we had, was a galach. He was a Roman Catholic, and he used to teach religious instruction, RI. And, what he only did to us, he used to teach us all about Yoshka Pandra, we had to know all the history and all the New Testament and so on. And we had to write essays on what he taught us, And one Jewish boy, there was 40 boys in my class, and there were just two Jewish boys. This other Jewish boy called Cohen. And we had to write essays. He wrote an essay all about what had been taught. And at the end of the essay, this teacher, this priest, he wrote, "This work is disgusting, maybe because you are a Jew." That's what he wrote in his book, in his textbook. Anyway, the kid goes home, shows it to his father. His father was furious. His father had been a soldier in the British Army, So he went to the headmaster, Mr. Benfield, big stark guy. They had to be all very strong teachers because the kids, the goyim, were really ruffians, They would, if they weren't, a teacher wasn't a really strong guy, they'd take terrible advantage of him. Anyway, so he complained. He said, look, I put my life on the line, and look, this is what I got to, So the headmaster says, there's nothing I can do about it, There's no law to stop it. He can write what he likes. Anyway, in the end, that gal had a mapola because one of the boys in the class, I remember his name, Parker. He was a big, tall kid. He was a big bully. He used to beat everybody else up. And he was very cheeky, very rude to this Galach, very rude. He said something to the Galach, so the Galach hit him across the face with all his strength. And he burst his eardrum and made him deaf in one ear. So then the Baruch Hashem, the headmaster had to send him out, He fired him because he said, you're too dangerous. If you hit the kid, okay, but you can't.
What was your bar mitzvah like? What was your bar mitzvah like back then?
Well, the bar mitzvah was, we went to Cheder. They taught us the brachas.
What's Cheder, Sunday school?
No, Cheder is like evening class. Yeah. It was every night of the week.
Oh, every night?
Yeah, Monday to Thursday, and Sunday morning as well.
Who ran it?
Oh, there was, the Leeds Board of Jewish Education. They had a Cheder. Yeah, we all went to Cheder. They taught us how to read, and they taught us Jewish history, which were all about Herzl and Joseph Trumpeldor and Zionism. That's what it all was, really. Taught us very little about Yiddishkeit itself. And then towards the Bar Mitzvah, they taught you, the brachas on Sefer Torah. They taught you your little half mafti, the little last piece, and that was it. And then the next day, that was Shabbos, and Sunday you had your Suda, with your family and friends,
You received a pair of tefillin?
Oh, yeah. I got tefillin, yeah. Because my family were from,
Your family was from?
My family was from, yeah. Orthodox, yeah. My Zayda, the picture of him over there was it was from a yid,
Also from England, or he had?
Well, no, my Zayda came.
You say they came to England
from Europe, that's from my mother's father. My father's side also came from Europe, to escape the pogroms, And so what happened was, the day after my bar mitzvah, the day after the Suda, on the Monday, my mother had to go into hospital. And she was dangerously ill. And she just lived for 6 months till Erev Rosh Hashanah. Pesach was my Pesach time, just after Pesach was my bar mitzvah. Erev Rosh Hashanah, she was nifta.
You found out she was ill right after your bar mitzvah?
Well, no, she knew before, but she hung on because she wanted to be at my bar mitzvah. The day after the bar mitzvah, she I've got to go in the hospital. She couldn't cope anymore. She had Jenna Machler, was only wissen von them. She suffered.
And she had it throughout the war? No,
not just afterwards. A few years later on, she never got ill.
Right.
Wonderful woman, great mother. She was a good mother. I remember her very well. Coming up to the 73rd Yortzeit.
Wow.
This Erev Rosh Hashanah. Wow. And so I started going to shul to say Kaddish. And I met two boys who were Leeds boys who were learning in Manchester Yeshiva. And it was Bein Hazmanim, it was in between terms, so they'd come home and they told me all about Yeshiva. Yeshiva's wonderful, you got to go to Yeshiva. It is Gan Eden. So I hated school because I was, the anti-Semitism was unbelievable. The punishments was horrendous. My father, my brother was in the Royal Air Force. My sisters were in university. I used to come home in the evening to a big empty house. He had a massive house. He had 18 rooms, his house. My father, when we lived in the slum.
A slum with 18 rooms?
No. We moved from that slum.
Okay.
And my father bought this house.
So he was doing a bit better.
Yeah, well, he was earning £6 a week in those days. That's all, But the houses cost next to nothing anyway. It cost a few £100 you could buy a house.
Right.
Now it's a few £100,000 for the same house. But, so he bought this big house.
18 rooms.
18 rooms, yeah. It was massive. It was beautiful, And my mother lived there a few years. That's why she died there. Anyway. Because they brought her home 3 days before Rosh Hashanah, and the last 3 days she was at home. I was in the room when she was nifta. It was very hard to. Anyway, I'll call upon him.
Never goes away, huh?
It never goes away. It was then when she breathed the last. And my father went crazy, the whole family were all there in the room,
And you're just 13?
Yeah, 13 and a half, yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, these two yeshiva boys told me, you got to come to yeshiva. So I said to my dad, Dad, I want to go to yeshiva. I didn't really know what yeshiva was.
I want to get out of here,
I just want to get out of this. I can't stand it anymore. I've got years of school ahead of me. How the hell am I going to survive? So, yeshiva. Anyway, in the end, I persuaded him. So, he made an appointment to see the Rosh Yeshiva. And for a Sunday morning.
This was a yeshiva in Manchester?
Yeshiva in Manchester. Rabbi Yehuda Zev Segal was the Rosh Yeshiva. So we made an appointment to see him Sunday morning. We took a train from Leeds to Manchester. We went to the yeshiva and go to his office, and he says to me, you want to come and learn yeshiva? I said, yes. He says, which Gemara have you been learning? I said, Gemara? Well, what's Gemara? He said, well, all right, which Mishnayos have you been learning? I said, I don't know what Mishnayos is. He said, what? He says, have you learned any Chumash? Oh, I said, you have learned some Chumash. Oh, right, what Chumash? Oh, I've been learning about Joseph and his brothers. Oh, he says, okay, he takes out a Chumash and he reads it. He gets me to read a line, so, less than a line. And I didn't know anything, I could hardly translate anything. He says, what about Rashi? Rashi? I never heard of it. He says, I'm very sorry. He says, I can't accept. He gets up and he starts walking to the door and he says to my father, look, I can't take him. He doesn't know anything. This is a yeshiva. It's a Talmudical college, it's an institute of higher learning. I've got no classroom. I've got no one to teach him. What can I do with him? And my father's begging him and saying, look, he's a Yosem. He has no one at home and he this and that. And Roshi says, oh, no, I can't, I'm sorry. And he walks to the door and he opens the door of the office. And then, for the first time in my life, I spoke up. In those days, little children were heard, but never spoke. You will speak when you're spoken to. And otherwise you don't open your mouth. But I suddenly realized, as I'm standing there, little kid, I'm going back to Leeds. Leeds means Gehenna. It's like hell to me. So for the first time in my life, I said something which I didn't really know what I'm talking about. I said, but I want to learn. And he said, you want to learn? I said, yes. Oh, he said, today is Sunday, go home. Tomorrow, pack your things and come back on Tuesday. And I came back on Tuesday. And it was mamish like Gan Eden. I couldn't believe it. Everybody was so nice to each other, so friendly, so helpful. There was no spitefulness and no mean. Everybody was mamish average as well. It was Gavaldic, and especially in those days, there were a lot of refugees. This was 1951, and I remember that in the yeshiva there was lots of Belzer Bochrim, Gera Bochrim, Satmara, Bobova, Yekas, Litvischer, English Bochrim. It was like a cholent, like a smelting pot. A few from this, a few from that, and they made up the yeshiva. Some big Talmidei Chachomim as well there. Wow. Anyway, so there was Lubavitcher Bochrim there as well, forgot to mention.
Yeah.
And I was attracted to the Lubavitcher Bochrim more than the others because Thursday night we used to stay up. We were supposed to stay up and learn the whole night because Friday was only half a day, so you stayed up Thursday night. But most of the night, everybody used to all sit round together and each one would tell stories of what he went through during the war and through the concentration camps. Many of the boys had still numbers on their arms,
You told me a story about a certain Weiss, I think.
Yaakov Yosef Weiss, yes. Yaakov Yosef Weiss was there. And he had the letter A in front of his number. And he was one of the earliest inmates of Auschwitz. He was there for 3 years or something like that.
Yeah, very few survived.
Very few survived with an A, and it was B, But anyway, Uncle Ponim, he told us that he was saved in a most miraculous way. They knew that there's they have the gas chambers and the crematorium. And it was only a matter of time before, eventually as fresh people came in, they moved the old people into the gas chambers. And he was a big, tall guy, very strong, all that, but he'd managed to survive. And but one day, his whole barracks was emptied out. They took them all to the gas chambers, and they knew by now what's going to happen. There's no way out, As they're standing there, ready to march into the gas chamber, so he's standing next to a friend of his, also, Chassidish. I think he was a Satmar, a Chassid. But he was standing next to a friend of his, and he says, his friend says to him, do you think Hashem could save us from this situation now? We're minutes away from death. So he said, of course, the Gemara says, "Afilu cherev chada munachas al tzavorecha." Even if a sharp sword is on your neck, don't give up. Like Moshe Rabbeinu was saved the last minute.
Right.
So this other book says, nah, it's too late. Finished. You can start saying Shema and Vidui. But then at that second, and it never happened before and it never happened afterwards, an SS officer comes down the line and he says, I don't know how many men, 20, 30, 40 men, I need 20, whatever, a number. He goes down the line and picks out however many he needed. And Yaakov Yosef, was chosen to do this job. And Nebuch, this other bocher, he went into the gas chamber. And he was in Yeshiva, Yaakov Yosef. He became a shochet. I remember him sharpening the knives. He became not only an oifer, he became a gas shochet, big knives. So, Yeshiva was wonderful.
Were people like that able to, speak also about regular life, or were they so in a different world because what they had seen that you found them distant?
The thing is this, you see, he I don't know, he was a very strong character, and he seemed as if he was perfectly okay. He got married, he had a big family. I saw him not long ago, when I was in London a couple of years ago. And I was walking in the street, and he was walking there, and I met him, So he was okay. But
so you could have a regular conversation about breakfast.
Oh yeah. Could it was they put it behind him. Except there was one bocher called Shabsi. He was a Chassidish bocher betachlis, but he'd suffered so much. He was a weakling, He'd been starved. He was like a skeleton when he came out of there, and he never properly recovered. And he died. He died in the yeshiva. That was Shabsi.
So you said that you were Thursday night Farbrengen with the different boys, and what would the Lubavitchers have to offer?
Well, the amazing thing. This is why I was attracted to Lubavitcher Bochum, because many of these Chassidish Bochum, they'd had miraculous escapes, hiding in forests and what have you, and near-death episodes. But the Lubavitchers, their experience was they had mesirus nefesh for Yiddishkeit. And that attracted me tremendously, because when I heard stories, what they went through to hide themselves and they were learning in underground chadorim, and learning in attics or in forests, and how they used to have someone stand outside keeping a lookout. If somebody suspicious would come, they'd tell me they'd hide all the books and so on and so forth. And I thought, wow, how come they had such mesirus nefesh, for Yiddishkeit? Because to me, I felt, Yiddishkeit, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, but if you can keep it, and it's easy to keep, fine. But if you've got to risk your life to keep it, you don't have to risk your life. If Hashem wants us to keep His mitzvahs, He should make it easy for us.
As we approach the 2-year mark of this podcast, Homesick for Lubavitch has become a household name in the Lubavitch community, with thousands of views each week on YouTube alone, as well as thousands more on the various podcast platforms. We have a devoted audience that listens regularly to the conversations and shares their thoughts with their families and communities. If you would like to sponsor an episode or advertise on one of our episodes, please reach out to Bensi at yuvlamedia.com. That's Bensi at Yuvla Media, YUVLA media.com. You were telling me a story about the train leaving the Lubavitchers on the train leaving Russia?
Which one? Because they didn't want it to leave on Shabbos.
Yes.
Oh yeah. They asked the Shiner, whether they allowed to leave Russia on a train on Shabbos, because they didn't want to travel on a train on Shabbos. So they asked the Shiner by the Rabbonim, and the Rabbonim Paskin that you can travel on Shabbos. It's pikuach nefesh to get out of Russia. So they went to the station, and they carried the money to buy a ticket in the hat of one of the kids, because they didn't want to carry it themselves. And they bought tickets, and they were sitting on the train, and all they worried was, let's hope the train doesn't move out before Shabbos is over. And eventually the train moved in, and it was Motzi Shabbos. Oh, they were so happy. I thought, well, what kind of love for Yiddishkeit do these people have? Where do they get this love for Yiddishkeit from? You see, whereas, in the yeshiva at Lemoshel, I saw whenever there was recess, so, everybody would go out to the garden, play football, soccer, or cricket, or something like that, and get a break, And yet the Lubavitcher boys all stayed behind, learning a sikha or a mime or something. And they really loved the Yiddishkeit and the learning, whereas the rest of us, we enjoyed it, but we were sort of forced to do it. Like, for instance, before we went to camp, we used to go to camp for 2 weeks in the summer, to a Yeshiva camp. And before we go, the Rosh Yeshiva used to give us a big drosha. I want you to learn 8 hours every day when you're in camp, And I can tell you, we didn't learn 8 minutes a day. We were glad to have that, the freedom, the yoke was not on our heads anymore. And the Lubavitcher boys, I'm not saying they learned 8 hours a day, but they certainly learned every day, and they were not running around like the rest of us. Anyway, so I asked Rabbi Yitzchok Dubov, one of the Rosh Yeshivas in the Manchester Yeshiva, who was a Lubavitcher Cousin, who actually learned in the village of Lubavitch in Russia, if he would learn some yechidus with me. So that's how I got interested in it, and I decided I want to go to learn in Lubavitch.
Just like that?
Well, it took some doing, it didn't happen overnight, but I wrote to the Rebbe. I got my first letter from the Rebbe in 1952. Tammuz, this month, Tovshin Yud Beis. Beautiful letter. And it's Ad Hayoim, that letter has a tremendous lesson for me, because there the Rebbe says, amongst other things, he says, in order to benefit from a mitzvah, you don't have to understand the mitzvah. The main thing is to do it. He says, Lemoshel, when you go to a doctor and the doctor prescribes medicine, you don't say, I'm not going to take this medicine until I know exactly how this medicine is going to help me. The doctor knows best, and you take the medicine, the taka helps you. And you can also maybe get a better understanding of how the medicine helps you.
What were you asking about? Could you share what you were asking about?
No, I just wrote, just introduce myself, who I am, and ask for a bracha. I'm starting learning in yeshiva now, and I'd like a bracha for success in learning and so on and so forth. And the Rebbe wrote, this very full-page letter, beautiful letter.
So, 4-page letter?
Full page.
So you weren't asking about, struggling to do a certain mitzvah, or I don't understand?
Well, I didn't really write much. No question. I didn't really question.
You didn't ask a question?
I don't think I asked any question. I can't remember even what I wrote, to be honest with you. I just wrote basically, they like the Bochrim, the Lubavitcher Bochrim persuaded me to write to ask for a bracha. So I did, I don't think I asked any questions.
I think I asked you this last time. The idea that Deborah wrote there, it's a nice idea, but I don't know that. What is it that sits with you so many years later? Because that's an idea that I can imagine many people writing. like you spoke earlier about the godless of the Rebbe's Torah at Farbrengen's, right? The mashal of Torah being like a medicine is quite common in Chazal. So what is it that sat with you? Was it the idea itself? Was it
It was just that,
the fact that this rabbi had answered you?
Yeah, I think so. I think, this great tzaddik took out time to write to me a little kid from nowhere, nothing, no yechidus, no nothing. And the Rebbe's taking time, and he signed his signature, I was very, very, very impressed by that. I thought it was very beautiful.
What did you know of the Rebbe at that point?
No, not very much at all. I knew about the Frierdiker Rebbe, because the Rebbe had only been Rebbe about a year or so.
Right.
So, and he wasn't well known, but, the Shem Tov boys and the Futterfast, they were in Manchester Yeshiva there. They'd already taken on the new Rebbe, let's call it that. But I was amazed at what the Frierdiker Rebbe had been through, how he'd stood up to the communist regime. Oh my God, because they were ruthless.
Right.
You were nothing. And yet he stood up and he was strong and he got his chassidim. His chassidim went on the serious nefesh. That really impressed me.
So you came to Lubavitch that was still very much under the auspices almost of the Frierdiker Rebbe.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Right.
So when you were in this yeshiva, you already called yourself a Lubavitcher? You would sit in Farbrengen with the boys, like you were already part of their group?
No, I didn't Farbrengen with the boys, but I became known as a Lubavitcher. And exactly what happened once, a little incident. One of the boys, they knew I was a Lubavitcher. Lubavitch was sort of a little bit different than the rest. So he said something not nice about the Rebbe. I can't remember what it was, but he said like a not nice thing. So I said, "Oh,
about the new Rebbe."
About the Rebbe, the new Rebbe, yeah. So I said to him, "Oh, you call your Rebbe the Vilna Gaon, well, I call him the Vilder Gaon, Vilder." Oh, he says to me, "You don't say that at all." I said, "Oh." He went and mastered me to the Rosh Yeshiva. He goes to the Rosh Yeshiva and he says, "Aharon Cousin called the Vilna Gaon the Vilder Gaon." So,
Wait a second. Oh, that's okay.
Call from facilitated.
We can wait.
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, the Rosh Yeshiva calls me in, and he says, "I heard you said something not nice about the Vilna Gaon." So I said, "Well, yeah, because he said something not nice about the Lubavitcher Rebbe." But he says to me, "Du spielst mit fire. You're playing with fire," he says.
This is Rabbi Segel.
Yeah, Rabbi Segel, yeah. You see, he didn't tell him off. What he said about the Rebbe, he never said anything to him. He didn't punish him. But he says, he said, "Du sollst fasten a halben Tag." You should fast for half a day. And you sollst reinwerfen money in the pushka. You should throw some money in the pushka. Fast a half a day and throw money in the pushka. Anyway. So the next day he says, he says, "That's what you've got to do tomorrow." Well, I can tell you this. I had the biggest breakfast I'd ever had in my life. And then I tried to, he said, "Sollst reinwerfen." A reinwerfen, should throw in money in a pushka. So I stood about 10 feet away and I threw a penny at the pushka, but it didn't go in. But anyway.
So you were a Lubavitcher at that point?
Yeah, I thought, what are you talking about? What are you picking on me? You punish him as well. Let him fast a half a day as well. No, him not. So-and-sos. Anyway, but actually Rabbi Yosef Segel was very close to the Rebbe, and he used to write to the Rebbe and ask the Rebbe headmaster. He went in for yechidus a few times.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah. But yeah, in Manchester, a book was written about him called The Tzaddik from Manchester. A whole book about
What was his story? He came from
No, he was an English-born boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but he went to learning Mir in the Heim.
Before the war.
Before the war. Yeah.
So you were telling me last time also an interesting story about Friday night when you almost got kicked out of yeshiva for growing a beard.
Right. I told you that story, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the thing was in the yeshiva, every Friday, Lekovod Shabbos, everybody had to shave. So, it didn't matter who you were, you had to shave.
Right.
Even the Chassidische Bocher, no bells or you got to shave. So they used to take this powder, mix it in water and smear it on their faces and leave it for about 20 minutes till it dries. And it used to burn off the hair. Then they'd take a piece of wood, scrape off the powder, and it would leave their faces clean like
What's that?
like a baby's bottom, It was mamish. Used to come into the yeshiva on Friday night, all their faces, a whole week no one shaved, but Friday night, his face. So the Rosh Yeshiva saw me. I was 18 years old then, and my beard had started growing. But I wasn't going to shave because I'm going to Lubavitch, and Lubavitch shaved the board. That was a known fact. He didn't make the Lubavitch boys shave.
He didn't make the Lubavitch.
No, he probably knew he can't do that, so he didn't let them. But me,
I know those guys. They wouldn't have done it.
They wouldn't have done it anyway.
No,
no way.
No.
Anyway, so but me, I'm not a real Lubavitch. I'm a Zuger coming. And so he says to me, Ich sehe, du wachst a board. He said, I can see you growing a beard. He says, take it off. Those were his words, take it off.
So you think he was trying to keep you from Lubavitch? Is that the
Yeah, no, because I said to him, well, I'm going to learn in Lubavitch. No, he said, Ich sehe, du wachst a board. He said to me, I see you growing a beard. But for was wachst du a board? Why are you growing a beard? I said, because I'm going to go and learn in Lubavitch. And Lubavitch, sharp and the board. You don't shave in Lubavitch. So he said to me, no, you're not. Lubavitch is not for you. You go learn in Mir, where I learned, or Slabod, go one of the yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael, Anyway, so, but I said, no, I don't want to. He said, but anyway, then his last words were, take it off. Oh, now, that was terrible. Because he could throw me out of yeshiva for disobeying him, no problem, Anyway, so I went to Rabbi Dubov, and I asked Rabbi Dubov, I said, what should I do? Rosh Yeshiva told me to shave. I don't want to shave because I want to go and learn Lubavitch. So he said, Zol's nit sheren. He says to me, don't shave. Psh. So a few days later, Rosh Yeshiva sees me and he says to me, I told you to shave. How come you not shave? So I said, well, I asked Rabbi Dubov, and Rabbi Dubov said I shouldn't shave. I had no other no other way out but to say that. Otherwise, you would have made me shave or thrown me out of the yeshiva.
Can you describe Rabbi Dubov what was it like learning with him? What kind of person was he? How did he strike you for this young English teenager?
Wow. Well, he was an old man, grey beard. He was a big Talmud Chacham. He used to teach Gemara in the yeshiva. Didn't teach Chassidus because, it was a Litvish yeshiva, didn't teach Chassidus. Privately, he would teach a few boys a bit of Chassidus on the side. He learned in Lubavitch, and he didn't know English. He refused to learn English, and afterwards he had charota. He said he could have achieved a lot more if I would have learned to speak English. But when he first came to England, he came early in the 1920s. So, he wanted to be careful. He didn't want to mix into the English crowd. He was also the Rav of the Lubavitch Shul. Besides teaching in yeshiva, he was also the Rav of the Adas Yisrael, the Lubavitch Shul. And what can I say? He was mamish.
What made him different is my question. Well, what impressed you about him?
I don't know really why. I had great respect for him. Because stories I'd heard about him, how he was Moise Nefesh for the Friedrich Rebbe also. I forget I don't know the exact details, but I know in 1928 he did something. He gave his ID to the Friedrich Rebbe, something like that, to help the Rebbe. He just was a very, very sweet man. He used to invite me for Shabbos lunch, and so on and so forth. And he used to learn with me a lot. I was just a good man,
So you're a bacher in London, in Manchester. You're learning in Manchester, and you've decided that you're going to go to Lubavitch, which at this point is Brooklyn, New York.
Right.
Right.
So all the Lubavitcher Bochum had left already. The two Shem Tov boys, Avremel Shem Tov, Rabbi Aharon Shem Tov, and his brother Yisrael Shem Tov, who is my Mechoten.
Right.
And then there was Beryl Futterfass.
Yeah, he left with Rabbi Aharon Shem Tov.
Then the two Gulkov boys, the older brother Shalom Ber Gulkov, who is Nifter, and Lavdo Chaim is brother Shalom Ber Gulkov. Anyway, they'd all left and all gone to learn in 717. I was there on my own, and
So there was a period of time where you're the only Lubavitcher in Manchester.
Right. That was tough.
Well, what was worse, that or back in public school in Leeds?
Oh no, it was not as bad as Leeds. No.
Just kidding.
No. But so I wrote to the boys. I said, get me a Form I-20, so that I can come on, with a student visa, So it took them a while till they finally got me one. But in the end, it came. Probably took about 6 months or something. I used to watch the post, the mail every day. Anyway, then I had to buy a ticket on the Queen Mary or Queen Elizabeth, whichever ocean liner was going to New York. But it's cost a sachgel. Cost £60.
60 whole pounds.
£60. Now, £60 was a fortune. Well, where do I get the money from? So I've got, Baruch Hashem, a wonderful sister. My sister Vivian lives in Netanya. She should be gesund and stark. She was working. She's done, and she earned £3 a week.
£3 a week.
Yeah, £3 a week. You got about a shilling an hour. So, in those days, £3 a week that's what it.
Right. And the economy in England at that time was not doing very well.
Well, it was after the war,
Right.
And just getting over it.
Right.
So, but she'd saved up £60,
For herself.
Yeah, overall, she put it away each month.
Right. Right.
So she gave me the £60, a serious nefesh man.
You asked her for it?
Yeah, I said, look, Vivian, I've got to go to learn to the Rebbe and all that. So she said, okay, I'll give you the money. It was Mesiras Nefesh Mamas, £60, a fortune.
Why do you think she was motivated to do that?
Well, because she saw, I was a from boy, Yeshiva boy, and I wanted to go and learn more. So she felt I got to encourage him. What else am I going to do? What am I going to do?
Well, you could stay in Manchester.
Well,
she understood that you.
But I wanted to go to learn with in 770 because I'd already tasted chassidus and I had a geschmack in chassidus. So
Was there ever a thought that you would go to France, to Brunois?
Well, I didn't even know about Brunois in those days.
Oh, interesting. So the only next step really was to go to New York.
Yeah.
I guess all your friends had also gone to New York.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So you get I'm just gonna put the microphone.
Yes.
So you get a ticket. You get a ticket to. She may if she listens to the podcast, she may ask you for repayment.
I'd give it to her with the greatest of pleasure.
Yeah.
I'd
So
take it.
So you end up in New York, or you end up on the boat to New York. Well, what's it like to be on the boat to New York?
Well, it was a 4.5 days trip across the Atlantic, There was a shul on board and there was a kosher kitchen and all that, So it wasn't too bad. I think we had a minion a few times.
Are you anxious? Are you? I mean, you're going to a whole new world. You're going to a new world. It's a new country.
Right.
It's a new community, because even if you hung around the Lubavitchers and the Yeshiva, like they are related to a lot of the people there and so on. It's like their community. For you, it's not yet your community.
Right.
What are the feelings? And how old are you at this point? 17, 18?
18.
18, okay.
18 and a half, yeah.
Yeah, and in those days, the world was a much bigger place, right? Traveling across the Atlantic was a big deal.
Yeah.
So were you sad to leave your family behind? Were you scared to find out what's on the other side of this?
No, not really. It didn't occur to me. First of all, my brother, who finished in the Air Force, he'd gone to live in Canada, in Montreal.
This is Eli Leib's grandfather?
Yeah, Oliver Sholem, yeah. And
Just keep the light on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So
Your brother had gone to Montreal.
So I was in touch with my brother, and he came to visit me occasionally, and I would go and visit him. You see, I was totally in the yeshiva. I didn't have very much to do with the community as such. I slept in the dorm, I ate in the yeshiva, and I learned in the yeshiva, and I was totally involved in yeshiva life. There was one balabos, Elia Gross, Oliver Sholem, who had been in Lubavitch a long, long time. Even, I think he was by the Farbrengen Rebbe as well. Yeah.
So this was in Manchester.
No.
It's already in Crown Heights.
I'm in Crown Heights.
Oh, it's already in Crown Heights.
Yeah.
So when you came here, you weren't involved with the community. You just saw it as a yeshiva.
Right. I was not involved in all.
So describe then your first impressions of getting off. You're getting off the boat. You go through customs, I guess, immigration.
Yeah. Well,
whatever.
I didn't have anything.
Yeah, no big deal.
No big deal.
And you take a bus.
Well, no, the Shemtov boys had come to meet me.
Okay.
And I don't even remember how we got to the yeshiva. I probably took a cab or something. I don't remember.
And what was your first stop? 770?
Yeah, we went straight to 770.
What was that like to see the building first time?
Wow, it was very impressive.
It was impressive.
Yeah, it was impressive. Yeah, it was a beautiful building. I thought, wow, this is something special, and it's the first time someone's asked me this question. I'm trying to think of what were my impressions. I saw the Rebbe the first time at Mincha at 3:15, and I thought, wow, that's a tzaddik. First time I'm looking at a real tzaddik, Then there was everybody was very, very nice. They were very accommodating. Helping me out. Found me a place to sleep. Found me a place. Where have my own little Daladamas, There was a building on the next block, 676.
Right.
That was the kitchen and the dining room, and also the
Dormitory.
Dormitory upstairs, yeah. So I was there for quite a while. And that was the life. I was there for 5 years. It was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Who's the first person that you meet from the yeshiva? Like who's your point person? Is there someone from the yeshiva that welcomes you?
Oh, David Raskin, actually.
David Raskin.
He was really special. Wow. He must have understood, I'm all alone and all that, because he really was like a father to me, honestly.
So is it the yeshiva? Is it being next to the Rebbe? What's the sense of what you're coming to?
Well, it was being in this atmosphere where, Chassidus is so important, and it has such incredible lessons for life, that was in a Bochrim, the Avodah, we used to see Bochrim davening for hours on end, I'd never seen that before, they used to daven till 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd never seen anything like that. And the Balabatim davening, with Barichas. It was such a wonderful thing to see. Wow, not that I ever achieved anything as much as that, but that's what really impressed me. And I thought, wow, this is what Chassidus is really all about.
If you're looking for an event that is memorable, meaningful, and affordable, let me recommend This World is a Garden, a film and live concert production created by us here at Yuvla Media, inspired by Bosi Lgani, the first mimer the Rebbe said. If you're a regular here at HFL, you know that Bosi Lgani is something that we think about and talk about a lot. And in this production, we use the power of cinematic filmmaking and a live concert by a string quartet to bring the beauty of Bosi Lgani to your community and your audience in a way that they've never seen, heard, or experienced it before. The production has already been hosted by Chabad houses around the country and has drawn wonderful reviews. Our package comes with everything that you need to put in the production: the film's original arrangements for string quartet, publicity materials, everything besides the string quartet, which we recommend that you hire locally to save on travel costs. To find out more about this production, please visit thisworldisagarden.com. Again, thisworldisagarden.com. And now, back to the show. So it was the whole setting. There was the Rebbe, there was the people around the Rebbe, the whole setting.
The whole setting.
So you said you saw the Rebbe the first time by Mincha.
Yeah.
But you didn't speak to him.
No.
So what was the plan? You had to wait a certain amount of time to go into yechidus. Was that standard that when you came to town you?
Well, I wanted to go in for yechidus. I arrived at the beginning of the month of Cheshvan.
Right.
After the Yom Yutevim. And the label Grona arranged I should go in for yechidus on Chof Zayin Cheshvan, 27th of the month of Cheshvan. And so, I prepared myself for that first yechidus. And, I wrote down some various questions that I wanted to ask.
What does preparation mean?
Well, you got to, your first yechidus is the most important yechidus of your life. So, these are the things like they were telling us. And I learned a few mamorim, a few sichas, said a lot of tehillim, the usual preparations for going in. Hopefully, I'll get some kind of injection from the Rebbe that will stand me in good stead, Who knows? Who knows? So what happened was, came to Chosai Cheshvan. One of the questions I asked the Rebbe was whether I should change my nusach hatfila. I used to have nusach Ashkenaz because we were from a Litvischer family, and I'd always have nusach Ashkenaz in Manchester. But I wanted to know whether I should change. I knew actually you're allowed to change from nusach Ashkenaz to nusach Sfard, Sfard to nusach Ari. But I wanted to get the Rebbe's haskom and his brocha as well. So the Rebbe said to me, ja, sollst ja beinten. Yes, you should change your nusach. Aber sollst warten bis Rosh Chodesh Kislev. You should wait till Rosh Chodesh Kislev, which was in 3 days' time. Which really is a pella because ja for sure has koydem bechlal. When it comes to doing a good thing, you don't delay, you do it, the sooner the better. Al tachmisu es hamatzes, es hamitzvah es hamatzes. Anyway, then the Rebbe said to me, du hast das Siddur? So I said, nein, aber ich will kaufen, nein, I'll buy one. So the Rebbe says, nein, ich will dir geben. No, I'll give you one. Then he looked on his desk to see if he has any Siddurim, but it was piled high with Sforim. People used to send in their Sforim to the Rebbe. Anyway, he looked for the Siddur, he couldn't find one. He pressed the buzzer on his desk, and Rabbi Chadakov came running in. And he said, Rabbi Chadakov, es ist öfter voran von den kleinen Siddurim in Merkers. Maybe there are some Siddurim in Merkers. So Rabbi Chadakov ran out. And then the Rebbe asked me a few more questions about my sister in Manchester and who you're learning with and what you're learning and so on. And then he said, I don't know why he hasn't brought the Siddur, but I'll make sure you get it. So I understood that that's the end of the yechidus.
What surprised you most about the Rebbe in yechidus? What surprised you most?
What surprised me?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something, it may sound strange, but first of all, when I came into the Rebbe's room, it was very cold. In comparison to outside, the Rebbe's room was always very cold. The air conditioner was on. And the Rebbe never wore long sleeves. He always had short sleeves. And, you could see,
You wasn't wearing a kapata?
I was wearing a capote. Yeah, of course. I was wearing a capote. I think he had a gout on as well, I suppose so, but I don't know. I don't remember seeing that because he was, I'm sure he had a gout, I think, anyway, so, and his capote, like, with the sleeves were up, and I thought to myself, wow, his arm, he must be really cold. I think that's what came into my mind. It's cold in here, and he's sitting there, and I don't know why he kept it, because maybe to keep him awake, maybe, I don't know, because when in a warm atmosphere, you start falling to dropping off to sleep, but in a cold atmosphere, it keeps you awake. I guess, I don't know, but the Rebbe always liked to be I remember that whenever I went in for yechidus, it was always very cold. I suppose that's what surprised me, and nothing surprised me as such, because, I'd already seen the Rebbe quite a few times, and
But this is the first time he's speaking to you, right?
yeah, first time speaking, yeah, wow, yeah. I don't know. I think I was I think I was a bit overwhelmed to really take things in, to be honest with you.
Oh, was he smiling? Was he?
I would say
Was
he
he
was
warm?
smiling.
Warm?
Yeah, he seemed to, totally, übergegeben to me. He seemed to be as if I'm in his thoughts all the time. At this moment now. But that wouldn't say I was scared a bit. I don't know what's going to happen. Whatever we'll see. I don't know. Anyway, but he didn't say anything out of the ordinary, to be honest with you. But he did say, I'll make sure you get the siddur. But I went out and I started writing out yechidus in the small zal upstairs. And after about 10 minutes or so, someone comes shouting, Cousin, where is Cousin? Someone, who's called Cousin. But I didn't think it was me because, my name is Cousin, not Cousin. He was saying Cousin, some Russian bocher. Don't know who it was. Anyway, I didn't answer him. I just carried on writing because I didn't think it meant me. Anyway, he came back a few minutes later and he screamed on top of his voice, Cousin, where is Cousin? And I said, his cousin, not Cousin, cousin. Oh, yeah, Cousin, the Rebbe will do, the Rebbe wants you. I said, well, I've been in for yechidus. What does he want you? Anyway, I went back. I went to the Gan Eden Tacht, and a label grown standing there. And the label says to me, Nu geh rein, go in. And so I opened the door and walked in, and I saw someone standing there in yechidus that put me back down. And I said, there's someone in there, bad manners, English gentleman can't just interrupt. He says, Nein, geh rein. He says to me, go in. So, oh, crumbs. Who am I, the new kid on the block? I can't start arguing with him. So I went in. And then when I went in, I saw that the Rebbe is holding this small pocket siddur, his red siddur in his hand. But next to him was standing Rabbi Yitzchak Ushpal, who's standing right next to him, and he's standing so close that the Rebbe's looking up to him like that, mamish, straight up, and unbelievable. And he's reading his own zettel to the Rebbe. But anyway, the Rebbe stopped and stood up, and leaned over the desk and gave me the siddur, and he said to me, Zol's davenen besimcha umatzliach sein. So I think, that was a very important thing to me. Always daven besimcha. Well, I can't say that. I always daven besimcha, but I've had a very happy, fortunate life, Baruch Hashem. Not without problems. Everybody's had their, their trials. But on the whole, I'm forever grateful to the Eibishter,
It's quite a moment that the Rebbe is speaking to this big Rav, and he interrupts it to give a siddur to this young bacher.
Yeah. You see, the reason why the Rebbe stood up, the Rabbeim said the hardest thing that they had to do was yechidus.
Oh, the Rebbe stood up when he gave you the siddur?
Yeah, he stood completely up.
Uh-huh.
And because I heard that the Rabbeim, the hardest thing was yechidus because of the halbosha and hafshota.
Right.
That they had to put themselves in another person's situation and then take themselves out of that situation.
Right.
Call halbosha, clothe yourself in his and unclothe. And that took tremendous koiches. And actually, if you notice, whenever you would go in for yechidus, they would always raise himself a little. And when you would go out from yechidus, he would raise himself again.
Oh, that's so?
Yeah. And I after I was told that, I noticed that every single time, without fail, it was just a little lift like that. The halbosha, hafshota.
Wow.
Halbosha, hafshota. But here, it was right in the middle of yechidus, so the Rebbe stood completely up, like a complete hafshota.
Wow.
And put himself into my situation, give me a sin. So davening besimcha. When you think about that, the ikka nakuda,
Oh, what was Rebbe's demeanor when he gave you when he at that moment?
Oh, well, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. You could see he really put his heart and soul into it.
Was it a smile?
Yeah. It was a nice, like happy expression on his face. Oh, I'm so happy to give you this. It was really great. Really felt beautiful. Wow. Anyway, I've got the siddur still in my office. I use it from time to time. At first I started using it all the time, but then it started to fall to pieces.
Right.
So now I use it on special occasions,
Right. Wow.
Yeah, that was...
what a moment.
That was a great moment, yeah. Oh, Baruch Hashem. So I stayed in 770 for 5 years. Actually, I wasn't in 770 all the time. The Rebbe sent me, in 10 shluchim, he sent to Newark, New Jersey. And I was there for a year and a half and then came back to 770. And, we started off this yeshiva. And eventually that yeshiva closed down when Morristown opened up. It was like the forerunner of Morristown. The Bochrim all went to there. We've got that beautiful campus in Morristown. So, but I was learning in 770 and I was, not a worry in the world. I enjoyed it. I loved every minute. I could have gone on forever. I started, the yeshiva used to give us $10 a month. Tmicha, it was called. So I told Rabbi Mentalik Oliver Shalom, I said, I made a cheshbon and I showed me, once you got to do your washing, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to send a letter home. I made a cheshbon at $10 just doesn't cover absolute basic expenses, But he said, I understood it, hotness, But, so, Yochanan Gordon, Oliver Shalom, he was looking for someone to help him do odd jobs. He was the Gabby of 770.
Right.
So he was looking for somebody to, Motzi Shabbos, put away all this for him, So he offered me this job for $15 a month, which was a lot of money in those days.
Double your income.
Yeah. And what I had to do was every Motzi Shabbos, put all the Tehillim and the Siddurim and the Gemaras and the Shulchan Aruch, whatever, from downstairs, the Shalash, and schlep them all upstairs, It was a good job. I didn't mind. It was good exercise. I was a strong kid in those days. And, I enjoyed it. And then I used to do other jobs. Whatever he told me to do, I would do. For example, I'll tell you, this is an interesting story. The Rebbe's wife used to come to 770 every day to visit her mother. She used to come.
Upstairs.
Yeah, mother upstairs, on the Rebbetzin, the Chomadina.
Right.
On the middle floor.
Right.
The Roshag was on the top floor.
Right.
Yeah. So she used to come when the Bochrim would finish davening by about 10:30, and then they would go to eat breakfast on the 676, the next block, and come back 11 o'clock. Seder would start. So she used to always come about 20 to 11. She'd always just to miss the Bochrim,
Right.
So one day, Yochanan Gordon said to me, I want you to move some big boards. He said, hardboard or whatever it was, from one room downstairs in 770, in the basement, to another room. And I said, okay, so I'll do it, quickly in my break, before I go for breakfast. So I started moving these big sheets, hardboard, and they were about, 8x4s, I could just about hold them and move them, And so the Rebbetzin came down this slope, and she used to use the elevator downstairs in the basement, go up to her mother, and then come down and go out. She parked the car in front of 770.
Oh, the Rebbetzin would drive herself to 770?
Yeah. In the Cadillac, yeah.
She would drive herself?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So, so I was carrying this big...
How did the Bochrim think about the Rebbetzin? Was she just completely mysterious, off limits?
Right. We didn't think anything,
Right.
Well, I saw her very often.
Right.
But I had no connection, no shaykhs, Anyway, so as I'm carrying this big board, so the Rebbetzin comes in downstairs to go to the... But I'm in the way, and I can't... And suddenly I saw the Rebbetzin, and I said, oh, I'm Chuldik Mira, I'm sure. I said, I'm sorry, I got in the way, I felt really bad. So she said, Machintosh. She was so sweet now. She went into the elevator and went upstairs to her mother. And I carried on moving these boards, Anyway, about 15 minutes later, she comes down again, and I'm still carrying these boards. And again, I got in her way because she came out the elevator, and I'm standing there with a big board, and she couldn't get out. So I said, "Oh, shoot at me, Rebbetzin, shoot at me. I'm so sorry." She said, "Mach nicht, es ist beschert, man soll sich treffen zweimal." She said, "It's beschert, we should meet twice." So she made me feel good at that time, I felt bad afterwards, but at least, how she was so sweet by making me feel bad. She was
Huh.
Yeah.
So last time before we go to the next thing, you're looking back at 5 years in 770.
Yeah.
What memories come to you? Is it the learning? Is it the Farbrengens? Is it the yechidus? What jumps out to you?
Ooh, wow, that is a very, very powerful question.
Well, it's my third time. I've had time to think about this.
You've asked me this question before?
No.
What jumps out to me when I think of my time in 770? I'll tell you what I think of straight away. The first picture that comes into my mind is the Rebbe davening at the table. You had that table which Yankel, what's his name, Yankel made.
Right, sure.
Yeah, and the Rebbe's davening Mariv, and he says Krishma. That always comes to my mind, more than anything.
Wow.
I don't know why, but it just that's such, God, Rebbe saying davening Mariv. I could, I knew exactly every movement.
The simplicity of it.
The simplicity of it. It's just unbelievable. And at Kriyas HaTorah, the Rebbe used to always come in for Kriyas HaTorah every Monday and Thursday. Right. And you could stand really close to the bimmer's here, and you can look at every detail of the Rebbe's face, And
he didn't come in with a talis and tefillin, right?
No.
Right. Just to hear Kriya.
Just to hear Kriya. He used to come in with his siddur and his gartel, put his gartel on, and then he was, he would get shlishi. And
that's very interesting. The what does Hayim say? The Tnoah of a tzaddik, right? There's so much that you learn from the words of a tzaddik.
Yeah.
But there's in a way even more that you learn from the movements, because in a way the movements carry something that goes beyond words.
Right. On Shabbos, we used to, the Rebbe would Farbrengen downstairs in the shalash, and after the Farbrengen, he would come upstairs to daven mincha in the zal upstairs.
So everyone would go upstairs.
Yeah, everyone would go upstairs. So Avrem Lipska, if you know, but he lives in this building now, but we were chaverim together, and we used to run up straight away and stand right next to the table where the Rebbe would daven minchas, because it was crowded. The whole zal was crowded with people, right up to the table. So we were literally 2 feet, 3 feet away from the Rebbe. And we used to listen to the way the Rebbe davened. We used to listen to his words, Ashrei Yeshiva. Anyway, the Rebbe used to always say, Zecher, Zecher, Rav Tuvcha Yabiyu.
Yeah.
Every time he said Ashrei. And also, when he came to Poseach Es Yodecho, must be an Chol Chayrot Tzoyin, he used to go like this, Poseach Es Yodecho, must be an Chol Chayrot Tzoyin, Tzadik Hashem B'chol Derecho V'chol B'chol Masif, Poseach Es Yodecho, must be an Chol Chayrot Tzoyin, Tzadik Hashem B'chol Derecho V'chol Masif, Kol Hashem Kol Chayrot V'chol Hashem Kruv Emes, Poseach Es Yodecho, must be an Chol Chayrot Tzoyin. We could never catch what those words that he was mumbling. We were listening with my hearing was very good in those days. We could not catch what he was saying, those words that he was mumbling. But I'll tell you another interesting story, which he may have been saying was, this happened in Toshin Chovtes, 1929. And you may have heard of Yossi Galitsky, who's a Rav in Tel Aviv now.
Sure.
Right. Okay, so Yossi Galitsky was then a Bocher in 770. And it was during the summer. And then in those days, the Rebbe only Farbrengen Shabbos Mevorchim. He didn't Farbrengen any other Shabbosim. So for the other Shabbosim, everybody used to go away to the country. For Shabbos Mevorchim, used to all come in. Anyway, suddenly it was without warning or anything. The Rebbe decides he's going to Farbrengen. I think it was during the 3 weeks. Don't remember the exact date. Wow, a sudden Farbrengen, no one's there. So he said, Yossi Galitsky was there. But a few, he said he doesn't think there was more than 120 people. It was empty. And the Rebbe's Farbrengen. So he said he was able to get a really good place. So there was nobody to say. He was standing very, very close to where the Rebbe was. Anyway, so they were singing a niggun, and the Rebbe's also singing, but then he heard the Rebbe's mumbling something. So, he concentrated very, very hard. And he's saying, what is the Rebbe mumbling? So he heard the Rebbe saying, Baruch Shalom ben Bunya zol haben a refuah shlema. Yeah. So he didn't know who Shalom ben Bunya is, but he heard the Rebbe say, and then singing the niggun, and then saying, I don't know if he repeated it, but anyway, he certainly said it. Shalom ben Bunya, just if you were very close, could you catch it? But that's what we got. Anyway, afterwards he said, who's Shalom ben Baruch Shalom ben Bunya? So he found out, Rabbi Shvei, he had a brother called Baruch Shalom. Baruch Shalom ben Bunya was a Muslim. So Baruch Shalom died, a young man, about 36 years old. But he was a tzaddik, a Talmud Chacham Nifla. He was bucky and coaching until in 770. He was a terrific guy, sweetest guy on earth. Big tall guy, must have been about 6'4", who knows. And he got Yena Machla. And the Rebbe was saying, Refuah Shlema, Baruch Shalom ben Bunya zol haben a refuah shlema. That's what he was mumbling.
So you think that's similar to what he was mumbling?
Maybe that's what when Pesach Hashudachim Spil Chon Chaim Rotzen. Maybe he was asking for Panosa for. I don't know. We never ever could catch what he was mumbling, and he would say it 4, 5, 6 times.
He would say the pasuk again and again.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying that was each week a different thing.
No. Every ashtray.
He'd say the pasuk over again and again, and then say something under his breath.
Yeah. He would go like almost to the end of Ashrei, and then go back, and again, and then go back, and then go back. Incredible. Wow. Anyway.
So let's. I'm using my past knowledge to guide this conversation a little bit. Okay. Let's go to the stories with release time. They're very, very important stories over here.
Yeah, right. I'm glad you remembered.
Anyway. How could I forget? You have to go soon?
No, but I'm just wondering, are we all right for time? I mean,
I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, release time was a very, very special time. Every Wednesday at 12 o'clock, the Beis HaMedrash used to empty out. Everybody went to the anti-Shmad office, which what it was called in those days. Later on, it was changed to the National Committee for Furtherance of Jewish Education. But in those days, it was called the Anti-Shmad Office. So we used to go.
It has a cooler ring to it.
I don't know. It sounds a bit anti-Shmad. I don't know. Anyway, so what happened was everybody picked themselves up. We used to go and pick your prizes up and your candies and your mazonas, whatever it was you're going to give out to the kids. Then you would travel to whichever public school you were assigned to, all over New York, Brooklyn, New York, and so on. I used to go to Coney Island, and we used to pick up, we had a big. We had about 200 kids in our particular group. We used to pick the kids up from the public school and take them to a nearby shul, and there we would, talk about Yiddishkeit, tell them a story, make them say a bracha, say Shema. It was gewaltige Sachen. We enjoyed it, and it was good. It was good. I was very, very successful. That's when I got my first. I was at first I was scared to open my mouth to talk to little kids, But here I was talking to, the kid in a big loud voice, to make them all hear and tell them stories, and that gave me confidence to speak. Anyway, because at first I remember when I was a boch in Newark, New Jersey. So we decided we'd make a Mesiba Shabbos in one of the shuls. So it was my job. I was going to have to take this group, So there were 5 kids who were going to come, and they were about 5, 6 years old. And I was going to have them for an hour, right? So I had to start preparing. What am I going to do for an hour with these kids, So already, for days before, it was playing on my mind. And I was scared stiff. And I started preparing a story, and I repeated the story 100 times to make sure that I got it right. And, and everything. It was it was agony. That was the first time he ever spoke to any in public. In public to 5-year-old kids. I was in a state. But eventually, I got over that and started talking to big groups, and then I speak to schools, and then I run a school headmaster. Anyway, so there was one bocher who I actually slept in the same room with this bocher, who. It shall be nameless because he doesn't want anybody to know who the reply he got. Yeah.
That's completely fine.
So he was a very, very big masmid. He never wasted a minute. He was a big Talmud Chacham. And he spent every minute learning it, even, going to sleep at night, he'd fall asleep with a sefer in his hand, a Shulchan Aruch or whatever. And in his spare time, he learned through all Shisha Sidra Mishnah. And he's chutz l'seder of the yeshiva. So, it was a real Talmud Chacham, Chassidish Boch Alamaylas. And he thought that going to Wednesday hour is a big waste of time for him because, it takes 4, 5, 6 hours, depending how far you have to travel, And in that time, he could learn so much. And he felt that he's not really achieving much. The kids come, but they come for the prizes, and they come to get out of school earlier, and they like the candies and this, that, and the other. He feels that he'd prefer to sit and learn. Can he please have an exemption? Can he have a patur, exemption from going to Wednesday hours? So he wrote into the Rebbe. He asked the Rebbe, can he have an exemption? So the Rebbe wrote to him this. The Rebbe wrote to him and said, I want you to know, it was in Lashon Kodesh, but today, I want you to know that all neshamas in Gan Eden and afilu nishmas Moshe Rabbeinu olav shalom, and even the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu olav shalom are envious of you that you can say Shema Yisrael with a Jewish child and they cannot. And that had such an impression on me. I could not believe it. It's not just some cute little thing that you do when you say Shema with a Jewish kid. It's things which Moshe Rabbeinu, and alle neshamas in Gan Eden, not only Moshe Rabbeinu, but alle neshamas. When you think of alle neshamas, you're talking about Avraham, Yitzchak, David HaMelech, Shlomo HaMelech, the Baal Shem Tov, all our Rabbeim. Alle neshamas, that had such a deep impression on me then that I decided I'm going to go into chinuch, because it's so
as a bocher,
that it gave me that impetus, that incentive. I said, I've got to be in chinuch.
It's amazing when I think of your story. what's really interesting as a through line is here's a boy that grew up in Leeds, comes to Yeshiva, is brought in, is accepted into the Yeshiva because he makes a plea to the Rosh Yeshiva at the last moment, right? And then comes to Lubavitch, and in a way, the welcome that the Rebbe gives you is here's a siddur to begin your journey of davening nusachari. Like you're making a new step in your life, and here I am to give you something. And then this story of release time, where you hear from your roommate the preciousness of chinuch, which then leads you into chinuch. There's something beautifully full circle about it, right? The power of chinuch, right? Like the story that you have with the Rebbe giving you the siddur. In a way, the most impressive part of it to me is that the Rebbe is talking to this Rav that he respects so much that the Rav is standing next to him as opposed to on the other side of the desk, right? And the Rebbe interrupts him. He could have waited till the Rav was done,
Right.
but I suppose the Rebbe got to sit there and said, "I have to give it to this young boy," right? And there's something, like, we're talking. There's something here very. Like the Rebbe says that even the Neshama Moshe Rabbeinu Alav Shalom is jealous of the moment of chinuch. Yeah, but that's how he acted to you, right? And the letter that he sent you when you were 12, and even your Rosh Yeshiva, who wasn't a Lubavitcher, but thanks to him, you came into the yeshiva.
Right.
And then you end up in chinuch. There's just something beautifully full circle and precious about the power and the attention of the power of attention towards a young child. There was a story you told me as well where you had a hesitation one time about release time.
Yes, that's right. When my Yom Moledus, my birthday, came out on a Wednesday, and I went in for yechidus and once a year in those days you could go in for your birthday.
Right.
And it was my Yom Moledus was before the Wednesday hour, so I asked the Rebbe perhaps I shouldn't go on Wednesday hour, but I should stay in the yeshiva and learn an extra Indian in Nigla and an extra Indian in Chassidus, So the question was, should I go to Wednesday hour? So the Rebbe read my zettel and he looked at me and he said, and he shouted at me. He shouted, "Avada sollst du gehen." I got in a bit of a shock, and I thought, wow, what have I done? Because I thought, I was saying, okay, yeah, you should go back. The Rebbe said it with such a force that I realized I'd made a big mistake. And when it comes to...
What did you say about mistakes at the beginning of our conversation? Mistakes right. Are good, right?
Yeah, you learn from mistakes. That's right. That's so absolutely important, yeah. Never, it's no problem making a mistake. Yeah. So... wow. So I got that message really strong. I was incredible. Baruch Hashem for that. I got.
So you committed to going into chinuch, and so did you ask the Rebbe about going to chinuch? Did he tell you to go into chinuch? How did that?
Well, my final yechidus before I got married, and I was going back to England, and I was going to ask. I didn't ask the Rebbe what I should do or anything. I don't know why, but the Rebbe himself said to me, "Zoals arbeiten in Bosi Lgani, you should go and work in Bosi Lgani." And he said, you don't have to decide right away what you're going to do, but you should only work in Bosi Lgani. That's what you should do.
So you hadn't even told the Rebbe that you're going on shlichus. The Rebbe told you before you offered, so to speak.
Yeah. The Rebbe just told me straight away. You should.
Wow.
And when I got there, the school had just opened. They only had 6 boys, and they had one teacher, Shalom Strux.
So you got married and stayed in England? You didn't come back?
No. Well, I came back for visits.
No, but you didn't come back for koil or anything?
No, there was no koil.
Back in those days. So you got married in England and then went to work in Lubavitch.
Correct.
Right after.
Right after, yeah. Huh. But what I did was I did fundraising which I didn't like.
You didn't like it, huh?
Oh no, I hated it. But I did it, and Koifin I say, actually I'm a right Sandy, and I used to go out day and night, and I did so much walking, I got terrible pains in my legs, and I had to go to hospital for physical therapy and this, that, and the other. But anyway, in the end, we bought an old car, Barrelfoot of us and I. We used to go fundraising some nights together. So together we bought this old car, 1935 Austin. Anyway, it was like a tank, but it worked, Anyway, we had problems with it. Never mind, but it was good. And we used to go out knocking on doors, go to an area and you knock on a few doors where you see a mezuzah, and then finally someone opens up and lets you in, and they're very friendly and very nice, and then you say to them, we're collecting for so they give you something, and they say, do you know anybody else you think we could go to? And they say, oh yeah, there's so-and-so, hey, he's a nice guy. You go, oh, so you got another couple from that guy, and then you go to them and you ask them, do you know anybody else we could go to? And in that way, we worked through a whole area and got to know all the Yidden in that area, and we used to go back to them 2 or 3 times a year for donations. Then once we got all the good Yidden in that area, we'd go to another area. And again, we'd start with one and then carry on 2, 3 until we did another area. I got so familiar with London. London's a very big town, but I could have become a taxi driver. I knew my way around London, all districts, Kamat,
So you started off on the fundraising department, and then became the headmaster.
Yeah. Then the school grew a bit, and they needed so I started teaching half a day, and then they needed a whole day, so I started teaching a whole day, and then the school got bigger and bigger, and until eventually I still went fundraising every night.
Really?
Yeah.
While you were headmaster.
While I was headmaster, and I'll tell you something else. While I was headmaster. Listen to it. I had a big family canal, I had 14 kinderlich, Ken Yerbu. And I was headmaster of the school, and they didn't pay me enough money to cover all my expenses. Can I know with a mishpacha like that? So I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd go shoymering milk at 5 o'clock at a farm just outside London. I'd shoymer the milk from 5 till 6. I'd get back to Stamford Hill just in time, 6:45. I'd rush to the mikveh. At 7 o'clock, I'd go to shul. I'd daven. I'd get home by just after 8, help my wife get the kids ready for school, feed them, dress them and all that. Get to school, open up the school, because I was the headmaster, open up the school. I was in school the whole day till 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, I'd go home and eat something. 6:45 was mincha. After mincha, I'd go fundraising, get home about 11 o'clock at night, and then I'd be up again the next morning at 4 o'clock. Do the same routine. Did it for years. But I was tough. I was strong. I never got tired. I was always full of energy. Baruch Hashem. I don't know, the Eibishter stopped me geholfen, and I carried on for years and years and years doing that. Until eventually, I had enough parnassa, which the Eibishter, had me reingelegt in Kopf, like Targum Uncle says, where it says, who hanoisen l'chol choyel, who hanoisen l'chol koyach lasis choyel. The Eibishter gives you strength to make wealth. And the Targum Uncle says, who yoiv l'chol eitzel l'mikne nichsin. The Eibishter gives you an idea to buy property. So I started buying some property, but 1, 2, 3, 4 houses, one after the other, and I had a tremendous hatzlacha and abu mufloga, and started getting more parnassa from the houses than I did from the school. But I still didn't give up. My work in the school was still, full time, running the school, and on the side, I was running these properties, and I got good parnassa from it. And after I sold some, I'll give you one moshel. I sold it, a lot of them, but I paid £2,700 for a property, right? And I had it for about 30 years or something like that. And I got rent from it all the time. I had Nissim V'niflois, Nissim, I sold it about 30 years later for £220,000. I'm not sure. I just anyway, and then I had another thing with this. My brother, Moshe Yitzchok, he was a very successful businessman, and he had a lot of money, And so he said to me, "Look, why don't we go into a partnership? You've got experience running property, finding tenants and renting and all that. Yeah, I'll give you the money. You buy some property, and you look after it, and we'll go 50-50 on the profit."
Right.
So, okay, I said, okay, I'll look for something. So I found it was a whole street, 12 houses, beautiful big Victorian houses, gesunde, starke property, top of the range, going £5,000 each, £60,000. So I said to my brother, would you give the 60,000? He says, yeah, I'll give you 60,000. He had plenty of money. Okay. So I said, listen, Mel, I called him Mel, Moshe Mel for this. I've got to ask the Rebbe, I can't buy just this. It's a big deal, this, I've got to ask the Rebbe first. So I wrote the whole thing. I said, my brother's going to put up the money. There's these 12 houses, and we'll be shut in. I'll look after it. It won't take me away from my work in school because, I already have some property and I do it all outside school time and all that. And I got an answer from the Rebbe like this. Chaval sheyaschil lotzeis me'avedus hakadosha shel kvei kedushas moiri v'chomi l'choil. It'd be a pity for you to start to go out of the Avodas HaKadosh of my shver to the mundane, to weekday, So obviously the Rebbe saw that I get so involved with the property that I would, I'd give up being headmaster, making money on, hand over fist. Those properties today probably worth about 3 million each, so 3/12, so about 30 odd million pound today. Those same properties, because our property just went meshug in London. Anyway, so I said to my brother, "I'm sorry, man, I can't do it. I can't. I can see the Rebbe doesn't want me to do it. Sorry, never mind." So okay, forgot about it. But a neighbor, a Satmar Chassid, speaking to my son. He said to me, your father was going to buy those 12 houses for 60. What happened? How come he didn't buy them? So my son said, well, he got a letter from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe wasn't very happy that he should buy them. This Satmar says, "Oi, a chosid shaiter." I felt so proud of it. I felt so proud that I'm a chosid shaiter. You know what I mean? But they tell their Rebbes what to do. Anyway, the thing is, he couldn't believe that I'd given this up.
Crazy.
Anyway.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, no regrets. Believe me, no regrets.
Yeah, so I want to just wrap this up. Look, I have to tell you that this is our third round, and a lot of the things you told me I heard the last time and the time before. But it was a delight to hear that all again, and you've said a lot of new things. So thank you very much. So I just want to wrap it up with a beautiful story that you told me about the competition that you had that you ran in your school.
Oh, right.
But I want to make sure that people hear this other line that you told me. So two things. There was a line at Koshel Bracha where a mechanech came to the Rebbe that we need to just cover that, and that will lead us into the story. Well, what was that?
You want me to repeat that story?
Yes, please. Yes.
Well, by Koshel Bracha, a young man who just started teaching, walked by the Rebbe, Koshel Bracha, and as he passed by the Rebbe, he said, "Ich bet a bracha if malamdas." I'm asking a bracha for teaching. So the Rebbe said to him, 3 words which are the most basic, important thing in chinuch. the Rebbe said to him, build self-esteem.
In English.
In English, build self-esteem. In other words, you must build up, praise a Talmud. Do not put them down. And that my experience, actually why I think I was so successful at being a headmaster, because I'd gone through that terrible experience of being in a Goyish school where you never heard a word of praise. You were only put down, you were only punished, you only told you no good, and you never, they didn't believe in telling you you're good. I remember when I was in Manchester Yeshiva, and the Rosh Yeshiva gave me an older bocher to learn with me, and because I had no class to go into, but to this older bocher starts teaching me a pasuk, and he says, "Vaydaber Hashem," and Hashem spoke El Moshe to Moshe Moshe, and he said to me, repeat it. So I did. I repeated it. I said, "Vaydaber Hashem," Hashem spoke El Moshe to Moshe Moshe. Anybody could do that. But he said, "Wow, you're terrific. You're a genius. You're so clever." I couldn't believe it. It was the first time in my life anyone had said a nice word to me, and he told me that I'm any good. I always thought I'm a useless piece of rubbish. And he did that. Build self-esteem. That is the most important klal, rule for chinuch.
They're ever giving you a siddur. How about that? Well, what's that?
Well, yeah, that's it. Building self-esteem.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that leads us to the story of you're running a competition in your
right.
in your school.
Oh, right. Well, the whole story.
Let's tell the story. I think it's worth it.
You mean
the competition that led to the prize?
Going to come to
yes.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Well, what I in order to increase the standard of learning and give children impetus and give them a incentive to want to learn. So I used to have a rule that because every week I used to test every class in the school. I used to, each class knew their days, Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or Sunday, and I would go in and test them. And if every boy in the class got 10 out of 10, 3 times in a row, 3 tests in a row, then the whole class would go on an outing. So there was this very, very big class of 28 boys. It was very, very difficult for 28 boys. Every single boy should get 10 out of 10 because you had a very wide range of ability in the class, But what I used to do, I used to arrange beforehand with a teacher. He would tell me, which possible to ask this weaker boy and a better boy and this and that. So we worked it out, in order to build self-esteem, make them feel good. And so this class of 28 boys, Baruch Hashem, they all got, their test was on a Sunday, and every single boy got 10 out of 10. Oh, and they were delighted. It was unbelievable, the joy. You should have seen how they were jumping and dancing for joy. Anyway, I said, okay, boys, that's it, number 1. Let's hope next week you'll get, So, again, that week, they all put tremendous effort into learning, and the better boys were helping the weaker boys, and they were phoning each other up at home and helping each other to know the psukim and so on. Came the next Sunday, and again, every boy got 10 out of 10. It was, unbelievable. The third Sunday, the same thing happened again. Wow, every boy got 10 out of 10. And I said to them, boys, this is incredible. It's the first time in history that such a big class, every boy has got to, I've got to take on a very special outing this week. Oh. Anyway, what happened was I was very, very, very busy that week. I didn't have a chance to arrange an outing. It came the next Sunday. The next Sunday, believe it or not, these kids, and this time it was no speciality because, they'd already earned their, but still every single kid got 10 out of 10. They really had improved tremendously. As I said, boys, I've got to take you onto an extra special outing. I don't know where do you think we should go? So they said, let's go to France for the day, or let's go here and let's go. Anyway, I said, something? I just said, for a joke, I said, you know what? I'd like to take you all to the Rebbe. Oh, well, they said, yeah, great, and that's it. They started jumping and dancing. Anyway, before they all went home, it was a Sunday, and we finished at 1 o'clock on a Sunday. Before they all left the class, I said, look, boys, I'd love to take you to the Rebbe, but it's impossible. I can't. It'll cost £1,000. And I said, oh, all right. But I said, I promise you, it's going to be an extra, really a good outing. Anyway, one boy went downstairs. His father picks him up on a Sunday at 1 o'clock. And he said, Daddy, he said, Rabbi Cousin wants to take the whole class to the Rebbe, but it'll cost £1,000. And he hasn't got £1,000. So the father came straight upstairs to my office. He said, Rabbi Cousin, he said, I heard you want to take the boys to the Rebbe and it'll cost £1,000. I'll give you the £1,000. A lot of money in those days. And the next morning he sent in a check for £1,000. So I had no brainer, I had to make it. But actually it cost a lot more than £1,000, but I raised money for it. And I took these boys, 28 boys, with 2 other Malamdim came with me, and we were here for 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks. Some people said, either I'm very devoted or I'm crazy.
Probably both.
Probably both. I didn't realize what it meant. And I used to take groups every year after that to the Rebbe, but I never took, the maximum was 7 days, 1 week. Whew.
So what was it like taking those boys into yechidus?
Oh, that was a very, I felt really good because,
But describe the moment.
Well, the moment was, he come in, I had 28 boys, Kanai and they were not all from the Lubavitch families. A few were from the Lubavitch families, but, we had kids from all walks of life. And they're all coming into the Rebbe. And, today, a lot of those boys live in Crown Heights, all Lubavitcher boys. And they weren't from the Lubavitch families, but they came Lubavitch boys. Anyway, that moment I came into the Rebbe, I thought, look, Rebbe, I brought these boys to you, and they love you. They hold you in very high esteem. And, they're going to be yechidus because they've got a good chinuch of Yerushalayim,
You were proud.
Boy, I felt good. I felt power. It was, it was worth, my whole life was worth for this moment, And the Rebbe was very appreciative because he gave Siddurim to each boy, gave a Siddur to each boy, and then again at the Farbrengen, afterwards, he gave out Siddurim to every single boy who was at the Farbrengen, and people ran home and brought their kids, schlepped them out of bed. And Label Grunner said, I said, the English boys have already got a Siddur. Should they get another Siddur? So Label Grunner asked the Rebbe, should the English boys get another Siddur? The Rebbe said, yeah, tell them to come and get another Siddur. So all the boys went up and got a second Siddur.
Did the Rebbe say anything to you at the yechidus with the boys? Did the Rebbe say anything to you at the yechidus with the boys?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful way to tie in the story, because the story begins with, towards the beginning of the story is the Rebbe giving you individually a siddur, right? And Lubavitch in those days was obviously smaller, and it was much more individual, and people would have yechidus one at a time, and there were very, very few people.
Right.
And then Lubavitch grew, and I guess these boys still came at a time when there was still yechidus, but that was also going to end at some point.
Right.
But despite the growth and despite the scale, and then you said there were the Siddurim at the Farbrengen, which is even more grandiose and bigger than the yechidus with the boys, which is bigger, the group yechidus, which is bigger than the individual yechidus. Throughout it all, there's that gesture of giving something to a child and believing that in this child there's something enormous, that even the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom is jealous of this moment. And I can dare say that Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom is jealous of what you've accomplished in your life.
Oh, that's very nice. I need you. I need people like you to be on my side.
Oh, and in many, many, many years, God willing.
Yes, Hashem. Yeah.
Anyway, this has been a pleasure. Thrice over.
Thank you so much. Great pleasure to do this, and a great pleasure that I met you, made your acquaintance. You're a great guy. You should be matzliach. and you should have mazel and bracha throughout your life.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Chaim, chaim.
Bye. The music for this podcast comes from the album Repentant Doors by Oren Sor Nadav Bachar and is used with their permission.